third is Suarez. Goodell comes running in. He's under it, makes the catch. Here's the throw to the plate. It's in the air. He is out! Cameron Red hangs on! Oh, man, what a play! Deep to right field. Way up there and way out! Second
And welcome back to the Stupid Money Podcast. This is the Colby Allard Emergency Podcast because it is the only signing since Aaron Nola. But no, seriously, we're going to talk about other stuff. But the Phillies did, I guess, make a move of sorts by signing Allard. What's the specific name of that signing? It's like a half and half or something it's called. Like
it was like more than like a non-roster invite to spring training, but also like they signed him for 1 year, but then they have control of him for 3. Mm-hmm. So I don't really know how it works, but it's kind of irrelevant, I think.
Yeah, Matt Gelb said he's getting like $375,000 to be in the minors, and then if he makes the major league roster, it goes up to $1 million or something like that. Obviously, this is just another Dylan Covey. I mean, there's no other way to put it. This guy was once like a top 25 prospect though in baseball.
Yeah, he was number 9 in the Braves organization at one point, I think. I mean, the curveball's decent, I guess. Mm-hmm. He missed like all of last season with shoulder inflammation or something. I think his career ERA is like 6. Mm-hmm. I think he has like 59 games or 59 innings or something, and he has like 60 home runs. I think 59 games and 60 home runs, something like that. So I don't expect anything to come of it. I guess it's just potentially a depth lefty if things really get out of control and get really crazy with injuries. But yeah, it was kind of just throwing money around. I don't really see the purpose of it in the long term.
Yeah, and I think the other maybe reason is I don't know what the hell the AAA rotation is.
I have no idea.
McGarry is like kind of a starter, kind of not, and then it's Abel, and then you don't have another like pitching prospect above like AA. I think like in terms of guys like on your top 30. There's just because Painter's hurt. Obviously, he's not going to pitch this year until maybe August or September, and that will not be in a competitive environment. So they needed, I guess, a body anyway just to fill out a AAA roster. So I guess that's mostly what this is for them.
I didn't even think of that because like it's Plasmeyer and like those guys who were all kind of potentially going to be the filler last year. I don't even think that they're all still around.
Christian McGowan is up there actually. But he only pitched in 1 game in AAA last year.
Well, wasn't like McKinley Moore once upon a time like that lefty? He threw hard last year.
Oh yeah.
I don't know.
He's not even on the top. He's not even on the top 30 right now. I don't know if they got rid of him or not.
Yeah, I can't remember if he got traded or waived or something.
Yeah, I'm not sure, but yeah. So I don't know, taking a waiver, AAA roster at worst. They needed depth there too, so I guess that is what it is. The other piece of news: Rhys Hoskins finally finds a home, and it's Milwaukee. 2 years, $34 million, but it's a player option for the 2nd year, so kind of pretty much the same deal Cody Bellinger got last year from the Cubs. I think maybe a little more money. I can't remember what his exact number was on that deal, but not bad for Rhys coming off the ACL. I was thinking about it, like the more he sat out there, were they going to talk themselves into bringing him back in some capacity? But the problem seems to be that he can't play first base every day yet. Mm-hmm. And the Brewers had more of an opening at DH than first base anyway. So like it made more sense for them. I thought maybe they'd find a way to make it work if he just kept sitting out there, and they gave him 1 year, maybe with an option, a mutual option or something like that. But yeah, that's the end of Rhys Hoskins in Philly. Obviously, we kind of knew that since the announcement came out that Harper was going to move first base, but this is the official end to it. So I don't know what your thoughts are on Rhys leaving. Kind of wish he went to the AL, but other than that, like it's meh.
Yeah, I mean, I know the last few years we've been pretty critical of him, but it is
Yeah.
sad to see him go. I think he's definitely something that they could have used in the lineup this upcoming year. But then if you think about it, a lot of the gripe was you were missing some of that righty production, but then Turner was like irrelevant for 3 months of the season, and obviously you don't know what's going to happen in this upcoming year, but you can kind of bank on Trey Turner being more comfortable and not being a complete negative for the first 3 months until the beginning of August. So you hope that some of that righty production gets picked up that you're missing in Rhys. Turner picks up the slack. And I mean, Bohm is just so weird because third overall pick, you had all these lofty expectations from him. He has improved every single year. It's just not the improvements that you're hoping to see every year. And I'm sure we'll do the same song and dance when spring training comes around and he looks good in the spring. And like last year, he hit a home run off DeGrom in his first at bat, and everybody was going crazy, myself included. But it's so tough to predict how the lineup shakes out. But you're getting Harper for a full season. You're hopefully getting good Turner for a full season. And as streaky as Castellanos is, the 2 years that he's been here so far, he has started off the season really well. So you hope that he just becomes more comfortable as the season goes on and kind of puts away the streaky side of him. But that's what Hoskins was too, just an extremely streaky hitter. So I don't know if you're willing to have Schwarber play in left field every single day to just have a more patient Nick Castellanos in the lineup, as well as Nick Castellanos also being in the lineup. So there were a lot of moving variables to go with deciding if they wanted to bring him back or not. And I think they're prioritizing the defensive aspect over it, which I'm fine with in the long run.
Yeah, I'm fine with them prioritizing defense Rojas cannot have the playoffs he had last year, because it kind of killed them in that Diamondback series where they were intentionally walking guys to get to him, and it caused problems. I think if they had Rhys in that Diamondback series, they'd probably win it. But we also made the argument, I don't know if they get there without Rojas in center field, like some of the plays he made in the Brave series. So I don't know. It's a fine line there. I don't know which would have worked later. You can make the argument that Rojas would have came in late in some of those games anyway and made those plays. So, moot point. But I am a little concerned about righty power just because, Turner, I don't think is that crazy power hitter we saw the last 2 months of the season. Like if he kept it up, he would have hit like 45 home runs like over a full season. Castellanos' power is so hit or miss. I will not count on Bohm to hit more than like 22 home runs this year. JT, he is declining. I just feel like your best two power hitters are lefty, and then probably your best two contact hitters, Stott and Marsh, are also lefty. So it's just kind of like a little more righty production would be nice, and I don't know where you're going to get it from because it's kind of two guys declining in Castellanos and Real Muto, a guy in the middle of the pack in a sense in Bohm, and then Rojas where you have no idea what you're going to get. And the Rojas thing is interesting to me because at the beginning of the offseason, they were like, oh, well, he has to hit more before he like wins that job or whatever. And then the way they've acted this offseason by not signing a single bat kind of like says they've changed their mind at some point this offseason. And now like he has kind of won that job without showing any improvement in an actual game.
I disagree in that sense because nobody in the market has really signed a bat. I think once the market starts to dwindle and you see names, specifically righties like the Duvals and Merrifield, like those guys who we've kind of talked about being that backup outfielder, letting Marsh move to center if they don't love what they see in Rojas. Like once those names start to fly off, that's when I'll say they're not doing anything. But realistically, nobody outside of the Dodgers has done anything, and overall, no one's really done anything on the bat side of things.
Yeah.
So I'm not really like completely freaking out about them not signing anybody yet. It's just a boring off season. As far as Rojas, I think they've definitely transitioned from he needs to hit to now they're kind of saying he'll have every chance in spring training to win the job, which is completely fair. I mean, the guy was his OPS plus last season when he got called up in the regular season was like either slightly below average or like slightly above average. It was like right around maybe like the 98 to 105 range, which with how we expect the rest of the lineup to be, like that's all you need from Rojas if he's going to give you like insane defensive run save numbers, which he did. But then it's really his first full major league offseason with Kevin Long. They've already been down in Florida with Rojas on a hitting plan. I think he got on that pretty early. I'm not really buying into the jacked Rojas stuff because we've done that song and dance so many times before. But I'm optimistic about the hitting plan. I think his biggest thing was he hit fastballs, and once you threw him any semblance of spin, he was completely overmatched. So then he started chasing fastballs out of the zone to try and avoid getting to those off-speed situations. So I think if it gets to the point where he's able to recognize spin more and be more comfortable and confident hitting behind in the count, I think that's when you'll see the offensive numbers jump up a little bit. I don't think he'll ever be like a power guy, but in the 9-hole where we expect him to be, I'll take even 250, 260 out of him, even 240 if he's giving us the numbers defensively that we expect him to.
Yeah, and if he can steal some bases on top of that and turn his lack of even gap power into these slap singles turn into doubles anyway, you know what I mean? Like, so like his speed obviously plays, which helps as well.
Yeah.
I guess this kind of leaves me with my last question on the lineup though, but now that Hoskins isn't coming back and they're probably not signing someone like a Cody Bellinger or a Soler, who is protecting Bryce Harper in the cleanup spot? Because Bohm did in the playoffs and it was a disaster.
I tend to think it's going to be Castellanos. I think the hole that they dug themselves in with the Bohm thing hitting cleanup was due to Castellanos in the regular season. I mean, he started off so hot, all-star, and then he just went like ice cold in the summer kind of, and they had to drop him in the lineup. And I think, we talked about it during the season. He's a guy who kind of uses anything possible to get motivation, and he felt slighted in the sense that he was hitting 7th or 6th. So that's when he started to get going again, and he started to see the power numbers come back, and he was hitting. But then I think they might have tried to move him up to 4th again for like a week, and it wasn't good. So they sent him back down to 7, and that's where you saw the results from him. So at that point, it was okay. You can't really mess with it because we saw what happened when you mess with it. So I think it stems from him being consistent, and I don't really hate Bohm hitting behind Harper because the batting average with runners in scoring position is so good. I think the two things with that protection, one for each guy, is Castellanos just needs to be consistent when he's hitting behind him and not try and do too much just because he's up in the order. And Bohm just needs to lift the ball more. I think so many of his struggles or critiques with runners in scoring position is they're all singles. So Harper's fast, but if you get a guy where it's, Schwarber leads off with a walk and Turner and Harper get him to second in some capacity, a 2-out single doesn't always score Schwarber where it might Turner or Harper. So that becomes a bigger issue. Oh, well, you need somebody, with more pop hitting 4th behind those guys. So I think those are the two things to kind of look for with each of those guys.
Yeah, I agree with that. It's just Interesting. I don't think it'll be Real Muto, even though I see
No.
a lot of people kind of project that there. I mean, Joel Sherman had Real Muto as when he was ranking top 3 trios and lineups. He had Real Muto as the 3rd guy on the Phillies with Turner and Harper, which I was
Yeah.
flabbergasted by. I'm like, he's maybe the 7th best hitter in the starting lineup.
Yeah.
And so that's just interesting the way, because people rate Real Muto's rating is all over the place. I feel like people, I don't know, they either
It's so
love him
tough
or not.
because when he was struggling, 2 years ago at the plate, for a month or whatever it was, the biggest thing was, well, his defense is so good. I think the framing metrics last year were awful. Obviously, he still has a hose behind the plate, and his pop time's insane. But I'm pretty sure the framing metrics where they kind of use, or they're trending more towards now using that stuff for Gold Glove, framing metrics, strike stolen, and everything. I think his metrics were really bad.
Yeah. I get on Real Muto a lot, especially with the whole double play things. But
Yeah.
that trade, did you know? I was watching this video, and this video is already a year or two old, so it's even worse now. But oh my God, I cannot remember who it was, but one of those baseball YouTube accounts ranked the biggest rip-off trade, lopsided trades of all time. I think it was Jolly Olive, and Real Muto's already on the list because they did it war that went in versus war that came out, what
Yeah.
each team got for war, and it's remarkably high, it's 30-0.
I mean, Alfaro's been on 6 different teams since that trade,
And the other 2 guys have not been in the majors.
Sixto they were trying to rehab Sixto in single A or the Florida League last year, and he was throwing he was topping at 86.
Yeah, so I mean, historically speaking, this is one of the best trades in baseball history in terms of value without giving up anything. So
yeah,
I don't know.
We give him a really hard time, but
We do.
Clentak's moves, the Wheeler signing was on his way out. Dombrowski wasn't here for that yet, and the Real Muto trades, Clentak might have been onto something. I hope he puts Rhys in left field in Milwaukee because that's where he is.
Yeah, he might. Carlos Santana's not in Milwaukee, is he?
No, they got him
Okay.
at the deadline last year, but I think he was just a rental.
Because that would have been so funny if they were both there with
Yeah,
Clentak.
they just had
Oh my.
get Justin Bohr back in as Drubal.
Yeah, no wait. Santana's on the Pirates, I think.
Well, they traded him.
It isn't he?
I thought they had him last year, and he had a really good start to the season, so they traded him.
Oh, that's right. Okay, I'm so behind on other teams. I've not been paying attention to them at all. I totally forgot where Santana ended up. But yeah, Real Muto, not too bad. So the last thing kind of want to get into here in terms of with the Phillies roster is the bullpen, I guess, is more set than we thought it was, because at their end of season press conference or whatever, they talked about the need to replace Kimbrel's 60 whatever innings he gave you. And we were led to believe that it could be someone like Jordan Hicks. And apparently that's someone they were very interested in before, for some very odd reason, the Giants gave him the ability to be a starter, which I don't understand for either side. Honestly, I don't know why Hicks wants to all of a sudden give starting a try when he's been a very effective reliever for 5-6 years now. I also don't know why the Giants want to make this guy a starter for the first time ever. I know they're not really in contention going into this season. It's just an odd move to me, but sounds like he kind of was the guy the Phillies, if they were going to make a big splash, it was going to be him. Now that he's gone, you're looking at some flyer type guys, not Colby Allard, but better than Colby Allard, but of that ilk in a sense. I guess that's where they're going with. I know Matt Gelb mentioned too that they'd like to keep at least one spot in the bullpen open where you can send guys up and down from AAA. So obviously, if all 7 or 8, I guess 8 guys in there are on fully guaranteed major league contracts, most of them don't have options, so that really restricts what you could do. So I get that, but it really looks like now the Phillies may not sign another reliever. And then I start to remember, like, Connor Brogdon is still like floating around this organization. This is a guy who was picking up like legitimate innings in the playoffs 2 years ago and then was nowhere to be found last year.
Yeah. Yeah, Brogdon's interesting. I feel like so many of his numbers stem on his fastball. I think if you look at the numbers, the difference between his ERA when his fastball's above 95 versus when it's 94 or lower, like, it's crazy just because so much of it plays off of his changeup. But like the free agent market right now for relievers is just so interesting because there was the report that Hector wanted like 3 for 30
50.
plus.
No, it was 50.
50?
It was 3 for 50.
But then the next day I saw a report that the Yankees were in on him and they were like somewhere between 7 and 11 per year. Which,
Yeah,
like,
that's
if
what
you're,
I thought, yeah.
I think I definitely do 7 per year for Hector. I'd be comfortable with 9. I don't know how I'd feel about 11 because I think that kind of handcuffs you as far as what it looks like around deadline time, making moves. You're really close to the tax then. But I mean, if the price is right and he kind of wants to give us a hometown discount, Hector would be interesting. Ryan Stanek and Maton from the Astros too. They would be.
Yeah, it's like the whole Astros bullpen.
Yeah, pretty much. But then, like, it's really gonna piss me off when they're just like, now David Robertson comes back for the 4th time. Which I can see them doing. Like, if you're talking about replacing Kimbrel's innings, like, why not just get a guy that's like the exact same as Kimbrel? Fastball, knuckle curve, like 57 years old, and can't stay healthy.
After the way they owned him after he got traded to the Mets or to the Marlins, I do not want him on this roster. I need him in the NL East on another team. Like, he just the way they ripped him apart when he was down there was just, I mean, I don't even think they dared throw him out there in that wild card series then, did they?
They traded for him at the deadline as their closer, and I think he lasted about a week as their closer before he got like 6th inning roles.
I don't remember. He might have pitched like one of those later innings once the game's already out of hand, but like they did not dare put him in a big situation in that wild card series. So send away from him. I do think the starting rotation is set, barring like Blake Snell's market like totally imploding to where you could get him for like 2 for 40 or something like that. You know what I mean? Like, I don't see that happening, but I know we mentioned this, and it just seems even more obvious now that they are waiting to see what the deadline looks like, because it looks like now that the Brewers have signed someone like Rhys Hoskins, and they haven't really moved anyone else. The Willy Adames rumors have quieted down. Corbin Burns is going to make it to opening day with them. Dylan Cease apparently is making it to opening day with the White Sox. They've kind of come out and said that. Bieber and Clase are still on the Guardians, although Jim Riley of Ballcap Sports on YouTube pretty much put out there that with the Dodgers signing James Paxton, he thinks that opens the door for them to trade some of their young pitchers for Clase, which if that happens, the NL is just completely screwed. So you have 3 really good pitchers who are probably going to be available come July. Clase might, depending on what the Pirates look like, maybe Bednar. I mean, you have options. So I get it, kind of keeping your minor league system as is and keeping some flexibility with the payroll, because I expect them to be involved with those guys. I don't know if they'll land any of them. The Mariners are also an interesting one. Like, all those young pitchers for some reason are like rumored to be out the door because the Mariners just want to be 500 forever for some reason. So there's a lot of options. I think we're going to see the Phillies have more or less taken the last 3. I guess, man, they've really taken off. Like, they haven't made a crazy deadline move in forever. But
I
since
mean,
the Rockies,
Marshall Hoppy was
right?
pretty
Yeah,
significant, but it's not like the
yeah.
crazy name. Yeah.
No, but at least so I guess last year, and then I was thinking 2021, they didn't do anything significant outside of getting Kyle Gibson. So outside of the Marshall Hoppy, which was pretty much an even trade, they haven't done a whole lot. So like your farm system is in a healthy spot to where you could maybe make one of these moves. You have a lot of younger guys that are starting to get some traction, like with their value, like Racones, Kaba, Bergola. Like those guys are starting to their value starting to increase because they're playing actual games now and stuff. It's not just projections. Um, so I do think that the deadline is where we may actually see some noise for the first time in a while, because I do think they get the sense that they do have to kind of go for it in the next couple of years. But I think they're kind of I think they like those guys. What I'm trying to say is I think they like those guys better than the free agent pitchers. So they'll
Yeah.
just sit and wait for their value to go down and try to survive till July.
And I think the thing that's caused the trade market to be so slow or kind of cool off on those starters is the way that free agency's kind of shaped out. Like the Cubs made such a big splash at the start of the offseason by poaching Craig Counsell from the Brewers. And then it's like, oh wow, if the Cubs are spending $40 million on a manager, then they're ready to go all in on free agents.
That was
And
their biggest sign.
obviously, they were poking around Ohtani and everything, but then they didn't make a single move. So the NL Central kind of turned, oh wow, the Cubs are going all in, to now the Cubs signed the manager and that's it. And then the Cardinals are the Cardinals. The lineup's really good. You don't know what you're going to get from the pitching. They got Sonny Gray, but like other than that, they didn't do like too much.
They got Lance Lynn
and Kyle Gibson. So
Oh my
sure,
God.
they signed guys, but are they necessarily upgrades? Probably not outside of Sonny Gray. The Pirates are the Pirates. They don't really do much in free agency. And one of their young guys, that Andy Rodriguez, who was supposed to be pretty important this year for them, got hurt, missing the whole season.
that.
So like Cruz will be back, but you don't expect too much from the Pirates as far as, how they kind of started off last season to where they ended. I think you expect more of how they ended. So then the Brewers were kind of like looking around and it's like, wait, we were going to trade all these guys, but we won the division last year and nobody else in the division really improved. So then let's just try and make marginal improvements. And that's, Hoskins is more than a marginal improvement for them with how bad that offense was. But right now they don't really have a need to shake things up with Corbin Burns or Adames. And then if you look at the AL Central with where Bieber and Cease kind of stay, the White Sox are so weird because their roster's so top heavy. Like Lubov, Cease, if Eloy's healthy, they have a lot of good players, and that division's so winnable. Obviously, the Twins are pretty good, especially when they're healthy and they finally got over that playoff hump. But that division's just so up for grabs, the way they kind of eat each other alive. And the Tigers are potentially going to be better, another year for those young guys to improve. Torkelson and Green kind of broke out last year. So that's another one where they were going to trade all these guys, but nobody in that division has done anything free agent wise to improve. So it's kind of one, just sit and see if we can play good to start the season. And then if not, then we'll trade when value is even higher, because Cease and Bieber will have higher value come June and July than they do now.
Yeah, I think we're actually lining up for a crazy deadline. It's been relatively quiet the last few years. I mean, outside the whole thing a couple years ago with the whole Juan Soto hater, the Padres went crazy. But outside that, it's not been nuts with a move every 5 minutes, right before the buzzer of the deadline and all that. I think that could be totally different this year, just because, like you mentioned, there's a lot of teams. There's a lot of fringe teams. A team like the Blue Jays even has some few older pieces on the outside of their roster, and it's they've been hovering in fourth place now for a while.
And just looking at, we talked about it a lot the last few episodes when talking about the pitching. but the free agent pitching class next year is so loaded. So that means so many of those guys are rentals. So if a team falls off early, they're even more likely to potentially move those guys come deadline time. And that's not even factoring in like Cease, who has, I think, 2 more years of team control after this one. So especially on the pitching side, the deadline will definitely be pretty wild.
Yeah, it's on the Phillies to stay afloat, I guess, until they get there, because they obviously have been a second half team the last 2 years. And, like you mentioned earlier, and I kind of brought this up, like, I don't think we realized how bad the first 2 months were for this team. Like, Bryce Harper had 3 home runs until the All-Star break.
Yeah.
Trey Turner was nowhere to be found until August. Aaron
It was
Nola had
literally like April through May was Castellanos.
yeah,
Essentially, like
right,
Castellanos.
because Schwarber doesn't do anything.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nola had his worst healthy season. I don't, I said a lot of that I think had to do with the pitch clock, the contract, him having a kid for the first time. Like, I think that all played into why that was like it was. So I think now maybe a little more comfortable with all those things being settled. Ranger Suarez missed the first month of the season, then was not good pretty much until July either. So there was just a lot that honestly was wrong with this team early. And like Jeff Hoffman wasn't on this team at that point either. And he became like your second most reliable bullpen arm. So like there's a lot of reasons
Alvarado
why.
missed how much time?
Yeah, there's like a lot of reasons. It's impressive that team won 91 games or whatever it was, because
I think
the
so.
first 2.5 months, honestly, like, there was no production coming from anywhere. They were just floating. And that's kind of why the record was 7 games under 500 when June started. So, I mean, if they can just for once start a season normally, like 500 even, like they
Yeah.
can get close to the Braves for the division.
Oh yeah, 100. I mean, we're so used to it because they're on such a gigantic streak of NL East championships. But like we've seen it in the playoffs and stuff. Like the rosters are not far apart. Like to have that 10, 15 win gap that there has been the last few years in regular season records is solely on the Phillies play through, April and May. We've seen how many times the last 2 years June comes around, and from June until September or the end of September when the playoffs start, you see how many tweets, oh yeah, if you take away April and May, the Phillies have the best record in baseball. Like it's happened how many times, how many different tweets the last 2 years you've seen that. So it quite literally just comes down to starting off. And I think, this kind of being the first offseason where, Nola was the big signing, but you're not bringing in those big outsider guys like the Schwarber and Castellanos and Turner. Like you have your nucleus, the young guys are all there. The only kind of question mark is who will be the center fielder. And if it's Rojas, you have a guy that's been there last year with the same core. And if not, you have a veteran that's coming in that isn't as high scale as those other guys have been in the past. So I don't think comfort can be cited as an issue as it might have the last 2 years.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't really think there's any excuse for this team to start slow. And apparently, I really looked at it, but from some tweets I've seen, people consider the front half of the schedule actually easier, which I don't mind that necessarily. I always said though, I kind of like when you play good teams in the first half of the year, because then when you get to the deadline, like good teams get better, bad teams get worse. So like when you don't play those good teams, you don't lose as much and you're playing teams that are worse. But I think for this team's sake, just maybe playing bad teams at the beginning of the year might help them get going a little bit, because once the summer comes around, it really doesn't seem to matter who they play. They compete with anyone. So that's never really been a concern.
It's kind of taking it with a grain of salt, because I remember last year looking at like September and it was like, holy shit, we played the Mets how many times in September? That's not going to be good. And then the Mets blew up, and the Padres had all these studs last year and they were horrible until like they tried to pull off a miraculous standings comeback. So like you're taking it with a grain of salt looking at, the rosters, and obviously at this point in time, we know who's established and who's good. But sometimes teams don't gel, and teams like the Mets, where they have 400 plus million in payroll, they finish 12 games under 500. The Padres need a crazy September to try and make the playoffs. So, you take the schedule with a grain of salt. I know they open up with the Braves here, and then they have Cincinnati right after. So I know those are the first two series, and those are two.
Oh wow!
I don't know. The Reds are weird because the pitching's but that
they get hit.
The division's so bad that they can easily win that division. I've seen them pick anywhere from first to fourth in that division. So it'll be interesting how the schedule shapes out.
Yeah, April actually. I mean, yeah, it's Atlanta, but then it's Cincinnati, Washington, St. Louis, Pittsburgh, Colorado, White Sox, Cincinnati again on the road, at the Padres, at the Angels. So I mean, there's not necessarily pennant chasers outside of Atlanta in that group.
Yeah, I will say, kind of hearing those names, if they start off 22 and 29 again, I'll be pretty pissed off.
Yeah, I think that's fair to say. May's a little harder. You get Toronto in there, you get the Mets a bunch, and you get Texas, and you have to go to San Francisco where they never play good. So
yeah.
But okay, so I got two questions to end this out. One is a relatively easy yes or no. The other one might take you a couple minutes to think about. Number one, and this was on Twitter. We talked about it a little bit. Is Rhys Hoskins a Wall of Famer?
I think he probably will be, solely off of the playoff moments last year, or his last year.
Yeah.
I haven't looked at the numbers enough to see where he ranks as far as the franchise and where he kind of stands in that aspect. I will say I think he will, solely because of what he kind of signified with this era. I think we talk about how, the 2010s were a rough time, and he was kind of the first, semblance of optimism in 2017 when he came up and just hit a home run every at bat, it seemed.
Yeah.
So I think kind of bridging the gap between, the worst years of the franchise to where they are now, I think he will be, solely because of that and because of how much everyone in the fan base seems to rally around him and love him.
Yeah, no, initially I was like, probably not, but he's third all time in home run by first baseman in the organization. I think if he would have played this year and they get back to the World Series or even win it, lock, no doubt lock.
Yeah, for sure.
I started thinking about he does do a lot of charity work and all that, which obviously counts towards that. And then I was also kind of looking at some of the other people that are in that Wall of Fame, and it's freaking middle relievers from the 1980 team.
Yeah, they're really loose with Wall of Fame nominations, so that's why I lean yes.
Yeah, that's the other part. I mean, I was at the one 2 years ago when they played the Nationals, and it was a middle reliever and a bench player from the 1980 team, and literally everyone around me is who? It was so yes, he will probably get in then. The second question I had, this might take a while, but I was looking up because there's all this talk about expansion teams, obviously, and how you protect your roster. And I don't want to, there's minor league portions to this too that I didn't really understand what it meant. So we're just going to stick with guys on the, I guess, 40-man, we'll say, but not don't count prospects, I guess. So there's 3 rounds of this draft. You cannot lose more than 3 players. So if one of your players gets picked in the first round, another player of yours can't get picked until the second round, and blah, blah, blah.
Okay.
Going into the first round, you can protect 15 players. And then after the first round is over, you could protect 3 more. So the total is 18 out of your 26, but it's originally 15 out of your 26. I don't know if there's a number of how many pitchers versus hitters you could keep, but is there anyone notable you would leave off? Because when I was going through it, there actually was someone kind of notable.
Off the 40-man or off the 26?
I guess it's technically the 26. I think Mick Abel would count. Something about how many years ago you were drafted. I think your your last 3 draft classes are protected.
Okay.
So I
I'd
think
need
like
to see.
Mick Abel would count in like McGarry.
Okay. I'd have to. I don't even know who those names are, but as far as somebody notable that I wouldn't protect, you said you had somebody notable that you wouldn't.
I did not in the original 15, and then I did like with the next 3.
Okay. All right. You say yours first, and then I'll try and find this.
So it was honestly Bohm, because I pretty much saved every other starting hitter, and then obviously I saved Sanchez because this team just has like 0 pitching depth, and I was like, I need to
Yeah.
save at least 4 of my starters, and I saved Alvey, Dominguez, Kirkering, obviously, because I think he would be someone that a team would definitely poach if they need a bullpen arm, and Strom. And I'm pretty sure that got me to 15.
Okay. So if I'm picking 15 to protect, obviously I have to think this out. Harper, Schwarber, Marsh, Castellanos, Turner, Stott, Wheeler, Nola, Alvarado, Dominguez, Kirkering. I don't even know how many that is. I'd be more reluctant to not protect starting players over relievers. I think I'd be, just because relievers are so hit and miss. I think looking at the relievers, I'd definitely protect Alvarado. I wouldn't even say Dominguez is a given for me. I don't know if Hoffman's a given for me.
Oh yeah, no,
Because,
yeah. Hoffman was actually in like the 3 I kept after the first round.
yeah, like I just looking at the relievers on the 40-man right now, I'd probably go Alvarado. I'd go Kirkring just because he's so young.
Yeah.
But like I'd probably keep Soto too, just because he's young and the stuff's there. And then I guess I'd protect Dominguez, but like other than that, I'd probably leave relievers go, just
Yeah,
because
so
like out unless you're like Josh Hader at this point, knock on wood, Jose Alvarado, like it changes like the weather.
yeah, so my original 15 was Harper, Turner, Stott, Marsh, Schwarber, Castellanos, Realmuto, Rojas, Wheeler, Nola, Ranger, Sanchez, Kirkering, Alvarado, Dominguez, and then the 3 I saved after the first round were Bohm, Strom, Hoffman.
Yeah, that's probably sounds about right. If you're not factoring in prospects or anything, I think if you kind of look at that ranking up to from 1 to 18, Hoffman would probably be my 18th, and then Strom would. I'd honestly maybe even put Dominguez as my 17th, and then Strom as 16th, just because he gives you the versatility to start games too.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty much just begging them to take Taijuan Walker.
Yeah. Oh God. Yeah. He wasn't even a thought.
I was like, this is a great opportunity to honestly get out of this contract.
Yeah. That wasn't even, that thought didn't even cross my mind.
Yeah, but that's the thing. Like, I don't know if the rules are like how many like starters you can protect, how many bullpen guys, how many. I didn't really dig into that too much, but apparently that was the rules the last time they expanded with the Rays and the Diamondbacks back in '97 or whenever that was.
Yeah. I mean, I haven't been alive for any expansion. So the rule, I have no idea what the rules or what the roster pool would look like.
Yeah, just like, so obviously when the NHL did it a few years ago, like the Knights were good like right away.
Yeah. Well, I know like whenever you do like the expansion leagues on like NBA 2K or something, I think out of like, so the roster size can go up to 15 in the NBA, minimum of 13, and then you're allowed to protect 7 or 8 of your roster. I think 7, and then the expansion team could pick from the 6 or more that you leave unprotected.
I have to look this up because I was in this late the other night and it's just like on my mind. I was curious about it. But I did not really look up like how the hell these teams start farm systems.
Yeah, that's probably impossible.
Yeah, the thing I kind of assumed was like the first couple 2 to 3 years that they're around, they
They
don't
probably
have
get
fun.
or they probably get like crazy compensation picks in the draft, like how the luxury or the
Yeah.
qualifying offer picks work. They probably get so many picks, and like after the first round they get one or two, after the second round they get one, after the
hmm
third, and they probably just plant them compensation picks all throughout the draft.
I'm guessing like they kind of like build backwards. Like you start with a AAA team, you build that, and then like maybe
Yeah,
like a year later you have a AA team. I'd have to look up like what the Diamondbacks and the Rays did last time, but that was the curious part to me, honestly, like how they make farm systems.
yeah, yeah. That's got to be. It's the only league that's like it.
hmm Yeah, because like the NHL has an AHL roster, like a AAA, but that's very easy to build, I feel like.
Yeah,
Um,
and the NHL still drafts guys while they're in college. Like, look at the
mhm,
the Flyers' whole mess with the kid not, or the
Yeah,
rumor that he wanted to come up from Boston College early, and they said no. Like, they draft guys and they go play in college for 2 more years. So the
yeah,
AHL stuff is,
yeah,
I
that's true.
don't even know how that works.
Yeah. Well, that's gonna do it for this one. It's January 25th, so I guess the next time we talk will probably be when pitchers and catchers report, like barring them doing like something interesting, I guess. Like
Yeah,
if like Blake Snell's market came down and they shock everyone and signed Cody Bellinger or something, like outside of that stuff happening, probably just meet again around the time pitchers and catchers report. So we will talk then, and we'll see you next time.